1, 2, 3, 4. So, in today's class, we are going to talk about real bebop basics. We're going to talk about how to master chromaticism in a way that is not the bebop scale. So I'll tell you exactly what I mean. I'll break it all down, give you a ton of examples, and let's get into it. Okay, so before I start talking trash about the bebop scale,
I know what it's called. It's called trash.
Let me steelman the argument for the bebop scale and why people say that you need to learn it, right? So if we take an example like a C7, some people might say you could play the C dominant bebop scale, which is a certain type of bebop scale for this chord. And it would sound something like this. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking a C mixolydian scale that you might play over C7, and we're adding back in the major seventh. And notice we're doing this in a descending fashion. That's usually how people talk about using the bebop scale. So when we have that C bebop dominant scale, it lands our chord tones on downbeats. We would have the root on C. We add in that B natural for the upbeat. That gives us the B flat, the dominant seventh on the downbeat. Then the A, G is a downbeat, F on the upbeat, E is the downbeat with the third, D, and then C. So all of our chord tones land on downbeats. And that's why people say we use it. Furthermore, they might reference examples of that from guys like Charlie Parker, who's like the father of bebop. And I found an example from that from his solo on Kim over this C7, which sounds like this. So you might see that kind of example in one of these types of YouTube videos and see, oh, there's an actual example. I use bebop scale, boom, problem solved. Boom! However, this bebop scale, what we need to understand is this is just one super small way that bebop players like Charlie Parker will use chromaticism. So you need to broaden your idea of bebop scale as just one possible option. And I don't even like that name, to be honest, of bebop scale, because usually when people think of scale, they think it's a collection of notes that they can just pick between. And the way that people use bebop scales correctly is a very specific method of descending in a certain order with those notes, not like you're playing B natural randomly within that scale. So if we take other examples from that same Charlie Parker solo on Kim, you can see that when he has the opportunity to use this dominant bebop scale, he doesn't do that. In fact, he's using other chromaticism, which I'll show you, that wouldn't be explained by the bebop scale. And so I think those are the first two things that you should understand. And they're ways of embellishing chromatically very simple melodies. So if we start off with very, very simple melodies like C, B flat, and A, there's ways of embellishing that in a jazz or bebop style so that we can get more notes, we can get more tension, and that allows us to play with this swing eighth note feel. So that's really what's going on here, and I'll show you two different patterns in this video. Very simple, one for starting on chord tones and one for starting on non-chord tones. Again, you can think about that depending on which chord you're on. Okay, so let's look at this first example from Charlie Parker, and it sounds like this. So if you notice in this bebop example, when Charlie Parker's playing this, he goes right from C to B flat to A. He's not playing that B natural. That would make this a bebop scale. In fact, he's doing this C sharp thing. So where's that C sharp coming into play? We're going to talk about that. And then another example here is this other, again, later chorus on the same song Kim, where he could be playing bebop dominant scale, but he doesn't. Instead, he plays this. So in that example, Parker is using two different types of chromatic embellishments, but again, neither of them are the bebop scale. So let's break down the first one, what I'm gonna call bebop pattern number 1. And I talked about this in my other lesson, Secret of Bebop Jazz Guitar, but this is a slightly different formulation that I think is a little bit easier to understand. So you start on a chord tone. We're gonna start on B flat, the 7th of C7, and we're going to have a descending melody. So just B flat, A, and G. Those are the notes you're thinking of, right? Those are basically our target notes for this. Super simple descending melody, right? We're just going down. You can think about it like a scale, down that C mixolydian scale, starting on B flat. Now, the way that Charlie Parker would embellish this is you say, okay, I have my starting note. My next note, I'm gonna start 2 frets below that, or a whole step below that. So our next note would be A. So we're gonna actually start 2 frets below that and come back up. So we're thinking B flat, A, but we play. And now our next note was G, so we do the same formula. 2 frets below that, or a whole step below, so F, F sharp, G. So for each of these notes we want to play, we approach it from below 2 half steps. What's so genius about this is if you do that in succession, like I just did, you start on the chord tone on the downbeat, and then your last note is also a chord tone on a downbeat. So just that whole phrase by itself works really well as an embellishment of just this idea. And then what you want to do is practice that on each of these chord tones, right? So we could start on the next set would be G, F, E. So G, 2 frets below F is E flat, 2 frets below E is D. Again, then we do E, down to D, down to C. Embellish it like that. And then the last one, C, B flat, and A. Practice that in some different positions, but for right now, just focus on where I'm doing it right here on this kind of C7, this shape right here. Okay, let's take a look at the second bebop pattern. This one's a little bit trickier to visualize, but equally as important for these kind of descending melodies. It's the same kind of melody now, but we're not starting on a chord tone. We're going to start on a non-chord tone. So basically not one of the C, E, G, or B flat, right? Okay, so for this, we're going to start on F. And so we're starting here. And now when Parker is using this embellishment and starting on a non-chord tone, we jump down a 4th. So we have this 4th, and then we get to the chord tone. So, and then the second half of this idea is just coming down the scale. If you kept going, you would land on a chord tone if this C7 continued. Right? But we're just stopping on that A because maybe you're resolving at that point. So that's the idea for this second bebop pattern. So we do it for F. Now let's do it for D. And then lastly for A. So those are 2 different embellishments. What I hope you get from this is that bebop scale is really a bad concept for thinking about how to improvise in a jazz or bebop fashion. You really want to think this is an example of using chromaticism, of which there are many, many different patterns and types, and that is what you really want to focus on learning, these different ways of chromatically mastering the chord changes. If you want to get the PDF for this lesson, as well as that solo study I played at the beginning for No Greater Love, which demonstrates these concepts so that you could practice it, you can join a 7-day free trial of Chase's Guitar Academy, and you can download that PDF for free. You can cancel one click at any time. We have a lot of great classes coming up, as well as a master class with Corey Christensen, which is going to be awesome, teaching us how to think about and learn jazz vocabulary, how to integrate that into our playing. That's on January 23rd. A bunch of classes every week. You can check out all the details below. And I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Let me know what you thought of this lesson. I love reading your comments and getting feedback from you for what you want to see in the next video. In the meantime, we will keep practicing that. Also, I'll throw a backing track for this in Chase Guitar Academy. So yeah, you'll get that too if you join. See you guys in the next lesson.